At the family party, everything seemed fine. Not joyful, not relaxed, just fine. Paper plates, lukewarm lasagna, awkward small talk. I was doing what I always did, smiling through the discomfort, playing the peacekeeper, pretending I couldn't feel the cold undercurrent beneath every word. Then my phone buzzed. It was my daughter, Sadie, 9 years old. She never called Mesh, she'd just come find me if she needed anything. But this time, she didn't. Her voice shook when I answered. "Get out, now." I blinked. "What happened?" She whispered. "Just get out of the house." And I did. No questions. No goodbyes. I walked out the door with my heart pounding and my breath caught in my throat. Sadie was waiting for me outside, backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes wide and silent. She didn't cry. She didn't explain. And I didn't ask. Not yet. I just drove. 3 months later, they begged me to come back. But by then, it was too late. The party had all the usual ingredients. A table too full of food no one really wanted, plastic cups in pastel colors, and my mother fluttering between guests like a queen bee of forced hospitality. My father sat in his usual recliner, telling his usual story about how he walked 5 miles uphill both ways to get to school as a child. Everyone nodded. No one listened. My sister, Rachel, had arrived late with her twin toddlers, who were already sticky-fingered and running wild. My mom swooped in to greet them like royalty. I got a brief smile, a stiff hug. The kind you give out of obligation, not love. Still, I told myself this was fine, manageable, familiar in its own warped way. Sadie had gone upstairs to play with her cousins, at least that's what they told me. I hadn't seen her since we arrived. But I wasn't worried. Not yet. Instead, I sat by the kitchen island, sipping flat lemonade and listening to Aunt Kelly recount her latest cruise as if she'd just returned from a war zone. My mom floated past me, offered me a meatball I didn't want, and didn't ask how work was. She never did anymore. I'd learned over time that silence was safer. I didn't mention my new job. I didn't bring up how Sadie had been having nightmares again. I didn't say how tight things had gotten financially, or how lonely I felt in a house that never felt like home anymore. I smiled. I nodded. I played along. There was music playing faintly, some old jazz record my dad liked, and the clink of silverware, the buzz of conversation. It was the kind of noise that, to an outsider, might seem warm. But to me, it was just camouflage, a blanket of sound that hid everything no one wanted to admit. I caught myself thinking maybe, just maybe, this was what peace looked like now. Not joy, not comfort, just survival with a polite face. And then my phone buzzed. It vibrated against the countertop. I glanced down. Sadie. I felt a flicker of confusion. Why was she calling? Had she lost something? Gotten hurt? I stepped away from the chatter, into the hallway. "Hey, sweetie, what's up?" I asked casually. Her voice was a whisper but sharp, urgent. "Get out, now." I froze. "What happened?" I asked, instantly alert. Her voice trembled. "Just get out of the house." I didn't hesitate. Some instinct older than logic, deeper than fear rose in me. I grabbed my coat, my bag, and left through the front door. No goodbye, no scene, just me, moving. And when I stepped outside, Sadie was already there, standing near the curb with her little backpack and a face I'd never forget. That was the moment I knew. Whatever happened inside that house, something had shattered. And this time, I wasn't going to pretend not to see it. I didn't speak right away, neither did she. Sadie stood by the mailbox like a statue, her arms wrapped tightly around her backpack straps. Her eyes met mine wide, steady, but trembling at the edges. Like she was bracing for something, or maybe just trying not to fall apart. I knelt down, gently brushing her hair back from her face. "Are you okay?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just whispered, "Can we go?" I nodded. No questions, no explanations, not yet. We got in the car, I buckled her in, then walked around to the driver's seat with my hands shaking so badly I fumbled the keys twice. When the engine finally turned over, it was almost a relief just to have any sound to fill the silence. We drove away slowly, not in panic, not in chaos, just quiet. I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting someone to come storming out of the house after us, but no one did. Sadie stared out the window, chin propped in her hand like she was somewhere far away. Her fingers fiddled with the zipper of her hoodie, over and over. "Did someone hurt you?" I finally asked, my voice low. She shook her head. Did someone yell at you? Another shake. Then what happened? She took a breath, long and shallow, like she was rehearsing something in her head. Then she said, barely audible, I just didn't feel safe. That sentence hit me harder than a scream. I pulled into an empty parking lot behind an old flower shop a few blocks away. It was closed, overgrown with vines, the perfect place to be invisible. I turned off the engine and looked at her. Okay, I said gently. We're alone, you can tell me now. She hesitated. Then, I was upstairs, I needed to use the bathroom. I heard them talking. Who's them? Grandma, Aunt Rachel, maybe Grandpa too. My blood ran cold. What were they saying? She looked away, eyes glistening. That they're going to fix things. That it's not fair to keep me away from him. That he deserves to see me. She meant her father. Her hands were curled into fists now. They said, if I went back to live with him, you'd be able to get your life together again. They'd help make it happen. I sat there frozen, one hand still on the steering wheel. And they said, Sadie's voice cracked, they said they might put something in your purse. Something bad. So you'd lose custody. I didn't speak. Couldn't. The words wrapped around my throat like wire. Sadie just looked at me and said, I didn't want to wait for them to do it, so I called you. I don't remember how long we sat there in that dusty parking lot behind the flower shop. I just remember the way the air felt thick, unmoving, like even the world outside had stopped breathing. Sadie didn't cry. That's what got to me most. She wasn't hysterical. She wasn't panicking. She was resolved. Like she'd already accepted that the people we called family weren't. I finally found my voice, but it came out like gravel. Did they say it clearly? About planting something in my purse? Sadie nodded. Aunt Rachel said it. Grandma didn't stop her. I leaned back against the seat, my stomach flipping. My ears rang. She added, they said it wouldn't have to be real just enough to make people ask questions. That's all it takes, right? She was 9. She shouldn't have to know how questions ruin people. She shouldn't have had to listen to that behind a bathroom door. They said they were tired of the tension, that I was always around, that things used to be more peaceful before we came back. I swallowed hard. My hands trembled in my lap. They miss spa weekends, I said quietly, more to myself than to her. Sadie's voice was flat now. They don't want me. They just want you to go back to being useful. That word stung. Useful. Like I was a tool they'd misplaced. I reached for her hand. You are not the problem, I whispered. You never were. She finally turned to me, her brown eyes tired beyond her years. I know. There was something about the way she said it that broke me. I looked down at her small backpack at her feet. It was bulging, overstuffed. You packed? I asked. I grabbed what I could. I didn't think we'd go back. A pause. I didn't want to. I reached over and pulled her into a hug, one arm around her back, the other around her head. She didn't flinch. She just folded into me like she'd been holding that posture in her heart all along. That was the moment I knew. There was no going back. Not for clothes. Not for explanations. Not even for closure. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to Aiden's name, and hit call. He answered on the second ring. Hey, he said, casual as always. I need a place to stay, I said. A pause, then, you still like waffles? I choked on a laugh that turned into something else. He didn't ask for details. He just said, I'll leave the porch light on. Aiden lived about 20 minutes away, in a quiet cul-de-sac with hydrangeas spilling over white fences and neighbors who waved without asking questions. His porch light was on, just like he promised. When we pulled up, Sadie was already asleep in the back seat, curled against her backpack like it was a shield. I didn't wake her. I just carried her up the steps, one arm under her knees, the other supporting her head. Aiden opened the door in sweatpants and a hoodie, holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. He took one look at USM barefoot, Sadie in pajamas, eyes rimmed. Redan didn't say a word. He simply stepped aside. That silence? It was the kindest thing anyone had offered me in years. We got Sadie settled on the couch with a blanket and a pillow, and once she was breathing steady, I finally sat down at the kitchen table. The same table where Aiden and I had done middle school science projects, college applications, and once tried to fix a broken toaster by Googling it. Now it held something else, the unraveling of everything I used to believe. I stared into my hot chocolate. They were going to sabotage me. My own mother, my sister. Aiden leaned on the counter. You surprised? I almost laughed. No, not really, and that scares me more. I began to tell him everything, not just about the party, but about what came before it. Years of unpaid debts disguised as family obligations. Years of playing the dependable one. The golden goose. The therapist. The ATM. When I was 16, I worked nights at a diner so my sister could go to summer camp. When I was 22, I paid off my parents' second mortgage with my bonus. And when I finally left my abusive husband, I came back to that same house, thinking maybe this time they'd be the ones to carry me. But I was never a daughter to them. I was a resource. They didn't even ask how Sadie was adjusting, I said. They just expected me to keep producing, even when I was falling apart. Aiden didn't interrupt. He just listened, the way only someone who's known all your seasons can. I sighed, and Sadie saw it before I did. He nodded slowly. She's your kid. She's sharp. She's exhausted, I whispered. So was I. That night, I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the bathroom door, the hallway, the hushed voices planning to erase me. But the worst part wasn't that they were willing to betray me. It was that I let it get that far. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of maple syrup and something burning slightly Aiden's signature, almost pancakes. Sadie was at the table, still in her oversized hoodie, sketching something in the corner of a napkin with her usual intense focus. Wolves, again. This time they were curled into a den, their eyes watchful. I poured coffee and watched her for a moment. You sleep okay? I asked. She nodded but didn't look up. Aiden set a plate in front of her with 2 pancakes shaped like, well, abstract art. For the little alpha, he said gently. She smiled, the faintest flicker of one, then went back to drawing. We were safe for now, but I knew it wouldn't last. My parents weren't just manipulative, they were persistent, and they didn't like being ignored. Sure enough, by noon, my phone buzzed. Mom. 7 missed calls. 2 voicemails. I didn't listen. Then came the texts. Where did you go? Don't you think you're overreacting? This is hurting everyone. And finally, we were just talking. That's all. I didn't respond. I blocked the number. But I knew that wouldn't be the end of it. That evening, Aiden found me sitting on the floor of his laundry room, hiding from my own thoughts. You okay? He asked, leaning against the doorframe. I nodded. Lead. Just tired. He didn't push. You can stay here, as long as you need. I looked up. Even if it gets messy? He shrugged. It's already messy. That's the point of a safe place that doesn't ask you to be perfect. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that kindness didn't come with a receipt. That night, after Sadie fell asleep beside me on the pull-out couch, I sat up and went through our emergency file, the one I'd built after the divorce. Custody papers, restraining orders, school records, proof of income. I knew what my parents were capable of, and if they'd already talked about sabotaging me, it was only a matter of time before they made a move. I wasn't going to let them blindside me again. This time, I would be ready. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just reacting. I was preparing. It happened on a Thursday morning. I had just pulled Sadie's hair into a crooked braid and was packing her lunch when the knock came 3 sharp raps, too firm to be friendly. Aiden peered out the window first, then turned to me, his jaw tight. Child Protective Services, he said quietly. My heart dropped. I opened the door to 2 strangers, one with a clipboard, the other with a badge clipped to her belt. Their eyes swept over the room like crime scene analysts. We received an anonymous report, one of them began, regarding concerns about the safety and stability of your daughter's current living conditions. There it was. The plan they'd whispered behind a bathroom door, in motion. Of course, I said, stepping aside. My voice was calm, mechanical. Come in. They looked around, peering into rooms, opening the fridge, inspecting the bathroom. I followed them like a shadow, answering their questions. Yes, I'm employed. Yes, Sadie is enrolled in school. No. There are no substances in the house unless you count ibuprofen and the occasional expired multivitamin. Sadie sat on the couch, hands folded tightly in her lap, her wolf plushie beside her. They asked to speak with her. I watched from the hallway as she answered their questions clearly, softly, every word deliberate. When they left, they said we'd hear from them again, if necessary. I thanked them with the warmth of a wet envelope. Then I closed the door, locked it, and finally let myself collapse onto the floor. I didn't cry. I shook. Every muscle in my body hummed with rage and fear and something else resolve. They really did it, I said to Aiden. They tried to paint me as unfit. He didn't say, "I told you so." He just handed me a cold glass of water and said, "Then it's time to fight back." That afternoon, I sat in my lawyer's office. Mr. Langford was a no-nonsense man with crow's feet, a bad tie, and a brain like a bear trap. He flipped through the preliminary CPS report, muttering under his breath. "They're building a narrative," he said. "Unstable single mother, no permanent address, male figure in the house. They're trying to align with your ex." "They already have," I said. "They're working with him." He looked up. "You sure?" I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd saved before blocking my mother, her, and Rachel lounging poolside with my ex-husband, all smiles. The caption read, "Family first. So proud of the amazing dad he is." He whistled. "Well, that's bold." Then he leaned forward. "Claire, I'm going to be honest. If they testify for him in the upcoming hearing, it's going to be rough, but we have a chance." "What do I do?" He hesitated. "Sadie may need to testify. It could make the difference." That night, after dinner and dishes and too many seconds of silence, I sat down next to Sadie. She was drawing again this time, a large snake wearing what looked like a pearl necklace and high heels. "Do you remember what we talked about?" I asked. She nodded. "If you want to stay with me, we may need to explain things to a judge. You'd have to speak." Sadie didn't flinch. She just looked at me and said, "Good, I'm ready." The courtroom was cold, not in temperature, but in energy, like it had been drained of warmth and filled with something clinical, procedural, almost predatory. Sadie sat beside me in a navy dress and white sneakers, her hair braided tightly, her wolf plushie tucked discreetly into her backpack beneath the bench. I could feel her hand inching toward mine under the table, her fingers wrapping around mine every time someone entered the room. Then they arrived. My ex-husband, Justin, wearing a tailored suit and smugness like it was cologne. Right behind him, me mother and Rachel. My father wasn't there. I wasn't surprised. He only showed up for photo ops. Rachel gave me a look, not of pity, not of guilt. Smugness, matching Justin's. "They think they've already won," I whispered to myself. The judge, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an unflinching tone, called the room to order. And so it began. Justin's lawyer painted a glossy version of reality. Justin, the devoted father, deprived of access by an unstable ex. Claire, emotionally reactive, transient, possibly endangering the child by living with unrelated males. And then came the supporting characters. My mother took the stand. In pearls. Always pearls. "She's always been sensitive," she said delicately. "And lately, with the pressure losing her job, the divorcee's taken a toll." Rachel went next. "Claire's always been a bit dramatic. She doesn't mean harm, but she lashes out. Sadie's a sweet girl. She needs stability." I sat motionless, nails digging into my palm. Let them speak. Let them lie. Let them bury themselves. And then, it was our turn. My lawyer stood with slow, deliberate confidence. He didn't start with emotion. He started with receipts. Bank transfers. Vacation invoices. A record of the 8-0. I'd sent my parents over the past 2 years while Justin was underreporting income. Then came the texts. Messages from Rachel referencing that CPS angle and how it could speed things up. Screenshots. Dated. Verified. Gasps in the courtroom. Still, the judge remained composed. "Thank you, Mr. Langford," she said, "but we'd like to hear from the child." I turned to Sadie. "You don't have to." She cut me off. "I want to." They swore her in. Her small voice echoed in the tall room. "Do you feel safe with your mother?" "Yes," she said. "Always." "What about your father?" Sadie hesitated, looked down. Then, "No, he gets angry. He throws things. He yelled at Mom. He scared me." The judge's eyes didn't waver. "Has anyone else made you uncomfortable?" Sadie looked directly at my mother. "My grandma and aunt. I heard them say they wanted me to live with him. They said they'd make Mommy look bad. They said they'd plant something in her purse." Dead silence. No one moved. The judge didn't even blink. Sadie added, almost as an afterthought. They said I talked too much, that I was ruining things, that things were better before we moved in. The judge dismissed her gently, thanking her for her honesty. Outside, during recess, I saw Justin grab my mother's wrist sharply. She yanked away, startled. Rachel stepped between them. There was no whispering now, only tension, unraveling. They didn't come back after the break. My lawyer leaned toward me. They're withdrawing their statements. I blinked. What? They know they're caught. They want to disappear before the ruling turns official. I exhaled, but I didn't feel relief. Not yet. When court resumed, it was quiet. My lawyer delivered the final blow, proof that Justin had hidden income streams and undeclared assets. The judge took notes, read everything twice, then finally looked up. Her ruling was clear. Sole custody to the mother. No visitation rights granted to the father at this time. Family members found to be attempting custodial interference will not be granted contact. The court finds sufficient cause for concern regarding collusion and attempts to manipulate child services. Justin didn't even look at me as he left. My mother glanced once, her eyes wet but not with remorse-only consequence. Rachel pretended not to know us. Sadie clutched my hand, wolf plushie in the other. We walked out of that courtroom as something more than mother and daughter. We walked out as a team, as survivors, as a pack. It took a few weeks for the dust to settle. But when it did, something beautiful happened. Not loud, not cinematic, just stillness. Sadie began sleeping through the night again. The nightmares stopped not all at once, but gradually, like shadows retreating with the dawn. She started humming while brushing her teeth. Started drawing wolves that curled in dens not to hide, but to rest. We moved into a small townhouse a few blocks from the school. Nothing fancy. But it had 2 bedrooms, a leaky faucet I learned to fix, and sunlight in the kitchen every morning. Aiden helped us paint the walls, not just with color, but with warmth. He made Sadie a loft bed out of reclaimed wood, complete with fairy lights and a tiny ladder. When she saw it, she whispered, "This feels like ours." I didn't cry, but my chest cracked open a little in the best way. One Saturday morning, a knock came. I opened the door to find my parents on the porch, holding pancakes. Literal pancakes. Still warm. The smell of betrayal in syrup form. "We were wrong," my mother said, voice trembling. "We didn't know what Justin was like. We didn't mean for it to go so far." Rachel stood behind her, arms crossed but silent. Guilt? Embarrassment? I didn't care. Before I could speak, Aiden appeared behind me. Calm, tall, protective. "You need to leave," he said simply. Sadie peeked out from behind my legs. One look, no words, just a tiny nod. They left. They haven't been back since. I heard through the grapevine that things aren't easy for them now. Turns out, framing your daughter to regain financial security doesn't play well in extended family circles or with bridge club friends. Especially once screenshots and court records become public. But me? I'm doing okay. Actually, better than okay. I have a job I enjoy, flexible enough to be there when Sadie needs me. I cook more, laugh more. I leave the porch light on sometimes, just because I can, not because I'm waiting for someone. And Aiden, he's still here. One night, over burnt toast and instant cocoa, he kissed me. No big declaration, no dramatic speech, just something quiet and inevitable, like we'd both stopped running. Sadie later told him, "I'm glad you're in our pack." He smiled, then cried in the hallway. He says he didn't, but I saw it. The funny thing about betrayal is that it teaches you something priceless. Not just who's willing to hurt you, but who's willing to stay. And in this little house, with wolf sketches on the fridge and mismatched socks in the laundry basket, I finally know what family feels like. Not perfect, not painless, but real. And I will burn the whole world down before I ever let anyone take that from us again.